I never planned to fall for a man like him. He was powerful, cold, and way out of my league. I was just an intern. But one night, one mistake, changed everything.
Adora was 24, brilliant, and desperate to make her way out of poverty. After graduating with a first-class degree in economics, she landed an internship at Orion Holdings, a billion-naira tech conglomerate run by one of the most feared and respected men in Lagos, Chief Obinna Dike. Tall, dark, commanding, Obinna wasn't just rich. He was intimidating. Rumor had it he'd once fired a man on his wedding day for missing a meeting. He didn't smile. He didn't joke. He didn't mix business with pleasure. Until that one night. The company was hosting an elite tech conference in Abuja, and to Adeora's surprise, she was selected to attend. "This is your chance," her friend Kamsi whispered. "Make an impression." She did, but not in the way she intended. The conference was lavish. Billionaires, politicians, and CEOs from across Africa attended. Obinna delivered a powerful keynote, and as always, Adora kept her distance until the after-party. It was midnight. The music thumped. Everyone had had a little too much champagne. Adora was walking back to her hotel room when she heard a voice behind her. "You work for me, don't you?" Obinna asked, startling her. She froze. "Why, yes, sir. I've seen you in the finance department. You ask intelligent questions. I like that." He offered her a drink, and though she was nervous, she accepted. What started as a conversation in the hotel bar turned into a deep discussion in the VIP lounge. Then a bottle of wine, then his suite. She woke up naked, ashamed, and alone. No note, no message, nothing. He flew back to Lagos that morning. She followed in silence. Adora tried to erase it. She threw herself into work like a woman possessed, arriving first, leaving last, volunteering for tasks no one else wanted. She kept her head down in meetings, avoided Obinna's gaze, and buried the memory of that night under spreadsheets and silence. But trauma doesn't vanish. It festers in the quiet. Every time she caught a whiff of his cologne in the elevator, her stomach clenched. Every glance at her reflection reminded her of the dress she wore that night, the one she tossed in the bin the next morning, as if fabric could hold shame. Weeks blurred into months. Her body changed subtly at first, a missed period, fatigue, the aversion to coffee she once loved. She chalked it up to stress, until the morning she collapsed in the office restroom, her hands trembling, lips pale. They rushed her to the clinic in the basement of the Orion Tower. The nurse came in holding a clipboard, her voice gentle but final. "Miss Adora, congratulations. You're 8 weeks pregnant." The world tilted. Adora sat frozen, heart pounding. Pregnant? No. It couldn't be. It was just that one night. One mistake. One moment of vulnerability with a man who would never claim her. Her throat tightened as her mind raced. What would her father say? A respected pastor, whose pride in her was the only thing that kept food on their table. What would her church say? What would he say? She didn't cry. Not there. But when she got home that night and shut her door, the sobs ripped through her like a flood breaking a dam. The next day, she told Kamsi, her closest friend. Kamsi gasped. "Obinna? The Obinna? The married one?" "It was just once," Adora whispered, eyes red. "I didn't mean for it to happen. I didn't even want to drink. I didn't plan this, Kamsi. I swear." Kamsi hugged her, then pulled back, serious. "You have to tell him. This isn't just your secret anymore." Adeora's breath caught in her throat. The idea of facing Obinna again, of walking into that penthouse office with his cold eyes and unreadable face, made her knees weak. "How do I do that?" she whispered. "He's a billionaire. He has a wife, a public image. He doesn't even look at me in the hallway. But this is his child, Ada. You can't carry this burden alone." That night, Adora sat in her tiny flat in Yaba, her hand resting on her stomach. Tears rolled down her cheeks. "I didn't ask for this, but maybe this baby needs me more than anyone ever has." And still, in the pit of her soul, A fear loomed like a shadow. Because how do you tell a married billionaire, ruthless, powerful, and emotionally distant, that you are carrying his child? And how do you survive what comes after? Adora wrestled with fear for days before she finally gathered the courage to act. Her hands trembled as she typed the email to Obina's private office. It was short, careful, yet loaded with weight. There's something important I need to speak to you about. Please, it's urgent. She waited. 1 day passed. Then 2. Then 5. Silence. No reply. She tried again. A different tone, more desperate. Still nothing. So she went to the lion's den, his sprawling mansion in Banana Island. The air there was different. The gate alone could house a small family. The guards looked her over like a beggar. I have an appointment with Chief Obina, she lied, her voice trembling. They laughed. No appointment, no entry. And next time, use the staff gate. Humiliation burned her cheeks as she turned back, clutching her handbag like armor. That night, she cried on the floor of her room, not because she was weak, but because she was tired. Tired of being ignored, erased, treated like a mistake. Then came the board meeting. She wasn't even supposed to be there. She had been reassigned to a different department. But fate, or perhaps the child in her womb, refused to be silenced. Obina entered the room flanked by his top executives. Tall, regal, and untouchable, like a king among mortals. Adora stood from her seat, her heart pounding like thunder in her ears. Everyone turned. Sir, she said quietly, her voice barely above a whisper, we need to talk. Alone. The room fell silent. Obina's brows lifted, a flicker of irritation in his eyes, but he nodded once. Minutes later, they stood in his private office. The air was cold and sterile, just like him. I'm pregnant, she said, her voice steady despite the war inside her. It's yours. There was a beat of silence. Then, he chuckled. It wasn't the laugh of a man caught off guard. It was cold, dismissive, cruel. You expect me to believe that? He said, leaning against his desk, folding his arms like a judge ready to deliver a sentence. Tears stung Adeora's eyes, but she refused to cry in front of him. You know what happened, she said, her voice cracking. He looked at her for a long moment, not with compassion, not even with guilt, but with calculation. I'll have my lawyers send you a check, he said coldly. Enough to cover the pregnancy and keep you comfortable. But stay away from my family. If this gets out, you'll regret it. He turned his back to her, dismissing her like a transaction gone wrong. And just like that, she was done. She walked out of that office with trembling legs and a shattered heart. But something else had awakened in her, something powerful. Rage. Resolve. Fire. He had reduced her to nothing, treated her like trash, brushed off his own child like an inconvenience. But she would not be silent. She would not be invisible. From that moment, Adora knew, if he thought she would disappear quietly. He had no idea what storm he had just created. The moment Adora handed in her resignation letter, whispers spread like wildfire through the office. They didn't need proof. In a world where power belonged to men and shame was a woman's inheritance, her silence was taken as confession. Some called her a seductress. Others said she was stupid. How could she trap a man like Chief Obina? But the worst betrayal came from the people she thought would stand by her. Her father, Pastor Ease, stormed into her apartment the night the news reached him. He didn't ask if she was okay. He didn't pray. He simply stared at her swollen belly and said, "You've brought disgrace to this family." Her mother sobbed in the corner, not from empathy, but from humiliation. Church elders came the following Sunday. She was stripped of her choir duties. Her name was removed from the youth leadership board. Her friends avoided her pew like a plague. She became that girl. The one who slept her way to shame. The one who ruined a married man. No one cared about the truth. With no job, no support, and no protection, Adora moved to a one-room apartment in Yaba. The paint peeled from the walls. The bathroom door barely closed. Mosquitoes became her nightly visitors. She sold her laptop to afford antenatal checkups. She began walking everywhere to save money. She ate less, slept less, dreamed less. Sometimes, she would sit on the tiny mattress beside the window, staring out into the noisy street, wondering if she was doing the right thing. Maybe the child deserved better. Maybe a couple out there could offer him a life she never could. Maybe she should let go. But then came the night of the birth. She labored alone, screaming through pain with no hand to hold. No husband, no mother, no friend, just her. And when the nurse placed the baby in her arms, a small, warm bundle wrapped in white cloth, Adora stared at him through tear-blurred eyes. A boy. A quiet baby with deep, penetrating eyes. Obina's eyes. But this child wasn't a mistake. He was a miracle born of fire. A reminder that even in ruin, something beautiful could still rise. Tears rolled down her cheeks as she pressed her lips to his forehead. I may be broken, she whispered, but my son won't be. In that moment, her sorrow didn't vanish, but her purpose was born. 6 months later, just when Adora thought life couldn't humiliate her any further, the storm broke. And this time, it was loud. The headlines exploded across every blog, every gossip site, every Twitter thread. Her picture, tired, holding her son outside the hospital gate, was everywhere. Pastor's daughter ruins billionaire's marriage. Intern turned homewrecker. Baby mama to the richest CEO in Lagos. Obina's secret child exposed. The internet didn't care about truth or trauma, it cared about clicks. People dragged her name without mercy. Church members reposted the story with long captions about daughters of Jezebel. Even strangers who had never met her had opinions about her womb. But the biggest blow wasn't the media frenzy, it was Amarachi. Obina's wife had filed for divorce. The petition leaked. It cited infidelity, emotional abandonment, and an illegitimate child. The story hit every major TV station. That night, Adora held her son tightly as her phone buzzed nonstop. Reporters camped outside her apartment. Neighbors whispered louder than usual. Her landlord sent her a warning letter. And then, he called. Obina. His voice was cold. Calculated. I want a paternity test, he said. No emotion. No apology. No acknowledgement of the firestorm burning around her. Just another man protecting his name. The test was done in private. Quiet. Fast. She didn't say a word during the process. She didn't need to. She already knew the truth. A week later, the result landed like thunder in Obina's office. 99.9% positive. The child was his. That moment rewrote everything. Obina didn't say a word for nearly a full minute on the phone. Then, in a tone that almost cracked under its own weight, he said, "We need to talk." For the first time, the power began to shift. He could no longer pretend she didn't exist. He could no longer hide the child that bore his blood. The shame he tried to bury had become public property. And now, he was the one with something to lose. Obina wasn't used to losing. So when the paternity test confirmed the truth, and the world began whispering, not about her, but about him, he did what powerful men do. He tried to take control. He showed up at her doorstep in a black Prado with tinted windows, wearing a suit worth more than her entire apartment building. She didn't invite him in. She held her son in her arms, blocking the doorway with her body. "I want custody," he said, voice smooth but dangerous. "You're poor, Adora. That child deserves more than this life." Her grip on her baby tightened. "And where were you when I collapsed in the bathroom? When I gave birth alone? When I couldn't afford diapers?" He looked away. "You abandoned me," she continued, her voice rising. "You don't get to show up now and pretend to be a father. You don't get to pick and choose when you care." But Obina didn't like resistance. The next week, his lawyers arrived. They filed custody petitions, citing unstable living conditions and media irresponsibility. False claims began circulating. Adora was mentally unstable, financially incapable, and emotionally unfit. Some blogs revived the shame narrative. Desperate baby mama fights billionaire father for child support. But Adora wasn't that same girl anymore. She had found her spine. She got a job, a real one, as a junior financial analyst in a Lagos firm. She worked late into the night, juggling motherhood and meetings, feeding her son with one hand while typing reports with the other. And then, something unexpected happened. She spoke. In a live interview with a female journalist who had once been slut-shamed herself, Adora shared her story, raw, honest, and unfiltered. She didn't beg for pity. She didn't curse Obinna. She just told the truth. I didn't ruin his marriage, she said. He ruined his own by hiding who he really was. I didn't chase him, he found me. And when I needed him, he vanished. The clip went viral. And for the first time, the world listened. Comments flooded in. This woman is a warrior. I see myself in her. Obinna should be ashamed. She's doing more for her son than most rich men ever would. Suddenly, Adora wasn't the girl who seduced a billionaire. She was the girl who survived him. Obinna's image began to crack, not just as a husband, but as a man, a father, a leader. Investors began to pull away quietly. His wife's divorce lawyers got more aggressive. Public sympathy dried up like water in the sun. And through it all, Adora stood tall, her child resting on her hip like a crown she had earned in blood and fire. The rain fell like it had a message, steady, cold, relentless. Adora was rocking her son to sleep when she heard a knock at the door. It was soft at first, then firm, then desperate. She opened it slowly, and there he was. Obinna, soaked to the bone. No umbrella, no guards, no pretense. Just a man, broken. I made mistakes, he said, eyes glistening under the dim corridor light. I want to be in my son's life. She stared at him, stunned, not by his presence, but by his audacity. Tears sprang to her eyes. You humiliated me, she said, voice low and trembling. You denied him. Denied me. You buried us like secrets. He lowered his head, shame finally crawling onto his face. I miss my family, he whispered. Not just him. You felt like home, Adora. Her chest tightened. For a second, just a second, she remembered what it felt like. The comfort of his arms that night. The way he smiled before everything turned to ash. Her heart flickered. But then came the memory of the boardroom. The rejection. The check. The custody papers. The press. The nights she fed their child on pap and tears. She stepped outside, the rain soaking her wrapper, and stared him down like the stranger he had become. You don't get to walk in and out of our lives like a passing shadow, she said slowly, her voice steady now. You don't get to show up when the guilt eats you, and expect forgiveness because you miss comfort. This isn't about you anymore. He dropped to his knees, water pooling around him. I'm sorry, please. But the door closed before he could finish. And on the other side, Adora leaned against the frame, heartbroken, shaking, and finally let the tears fall. Not for him. Not even for herself. But for the woman she used to be, and the strength it took to walk away. Years slipped by like pages in a weathered journal. Adeora's son, Chisholm, grew up with laughter in his heart and strength in his bones. He was polite, brilliant, and kind, everything she prayed he'd become. And everywhere they went, people whispered, that boy looks like Obinna. But she never flinched. Because she had raised him, not as a product of shame, but as a symbol of survival. While others doubted, mocked, and abandoned her, Adora stayed standing. She studied online at night, built connections by day, and fought her way into boardrooms that were never built for women like her. She started a consulting firm from scratch, one client, one pitch, one breakthrough at a time. Eventually, her name echoed through Lagos as one of the most respected female entrepreneurs in the business world. She was invited to conferences where her story inspired others. She mentored girls from broken homes, teaching them that grace isn't inherited, it's forged in fire. And what of Obinna? He faded into the background, still rich, still powerful, still respected in some rooms. But something had changed. His house was bigger, his cars newer, his investments larger. But his eyes were hollow. He saw his son on billboards and in newspapers, standing next to Adora during award ceremonies, school recognitions, charity launches. A child who looked exactly like him, yet wouldn't call him daddy. Obinna sat alone most nights, the silence of his mansion louder than ever. He scrolled through social media, watching their lives unfold without him. No lawsuit could fix that. No money could buy his place back. Adora, on the other hand, never forgot what happened that night after the conference. The look in his eyes, the vulnerability she once mistook for love. But she also never let it define her. Because scars are not shameful. They are signs that you survived what tried to destroy you. And sometimes, the most powerful revenge is living well, is healing fully, is rising above the people who broke you, and letting them watch you shine from the shadows. Please don't forget to like, subscribe, and share for more interesting stories.